All right, this is supporting a Filipina's family. It is the law. Here we go.
Hi folks, the Filipina Pea here, and as promised, I'm here with my good old friend, Attorney Gracie. Welcome back.
Thanks, Fee. Thanks for having me here in flesh now.
I know, you've been very busy and you've been traveling a lot, and the last time we spoke, it's via video chat.
Correct, yes.
So folks, aside from celebrating Gracie's return, we're going to be talking about important laws that you need to know. So, stay tuned. All right, Gracie, welcome back to my studio. Cheers.
Cheers!
Well, the last time we had wine, we were using cups.
Cups. I remember that one.
Now I upgraded.
Chilled red wine in a cup. That's
Yeah.
what we had.
Yeah, but at least I upgraded. I bought the
Very good.
proper glass. Okay, so the first thing we have to talk about, Gracie, is this law. I was so surprised because knowing we Filipinos were very family oriented, we always wanted to give back to the family.
Correct.
But I heard that there's a specific law that we need to support our parents.
So basically, the cultural thing supporting our parents is something enshrined in our civil code.
Right.
Yeah. Specifically, Article 195 of our civil code. Article 195 enumerates the people who are obliged to support each other.
Okay.
One of which is the parents and their legitimate children and the legitimate children of those children. Basically, parents and children has to support each other. It's a mutual obligation.
Okay.
So if you see it the way that when the parents are at the time of their lives that they need the support from their children who are already at the time of their lives capable to provide support, then the parents can invoke support from their children.
Okay, so if you're a working adult now that and your parents say, "Hey, you need to support us back because we need this amount of money every month." If I refuse to give that to them, will I be sued? Can my parents sue me for that?
Christian Filipina can make
So, this is a very different setup, right, than the United States. We don't have anything like that over here. So this is going to be very interesting because they are family oriented, but they have, as she said earlier, there's things in their laws that are enshrined because they are a very family oriented culture. I will say though, in my opinion, any culture anywhere in the world, if your culture is a strong one, you really don't need laws because there's a philosophical saying out there that goes something like, basically you cannot legislate human behavior. But let's get into it and see what they have to say.
finding a traditional partner easier.
The answer for that one is yes. Your parents can file a case for support in court invoking this provision of our laws.
Do they know that there's a law like
I don't know.
Is it known? I mean, well, ignorance.
Now they
doesn't-
know.
Yeah. Okay.
Your parents now knows
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. I'll be in trouble. So really, it is a law. So
It is part of our civil code.
Civil
so it's
code.
part of our laws.
okay.
So basic laws. So under our civil code, 195 enumerates those people who are obliged to support each other, and 194, Article 194, define what supports, what the term support means. So
Okay.
basically, the term support comprises everything indispensable for sustenance, for dwelling, for clothing, for medical attendance, education, transportation, and everything else in keeping with the financial capacity of the family.
How can they determine how much I should give back to my parents?
So this gets real interesting right here.
First of all, it would depend on the needs of your parents.
Oh, okay.
And second, it would also depend on your capacity to provide, at what certain level you can.
Needs and capacity. So, which is very important because the needs are weighed. I think the way they do it is in a very realistic manner. It's not like you can go out and say, oh, they're going to need all this stuff, so they can go on cruises and they can do all this luxury stuff. It provides for basic needs. Some people would call it like needs of survival.
Provide the support.
Who
'Cause you can-
decides? The judge?
Basically, if it's not being agreed by the parties, not being agreed by you and your parents, then if it goes to court, then the judge can decide for you.
Okay, this amount of money.
Yeah.
P, you have to, oh my.
And please take note, it's not limited only to parents. It's brothers and sisters are also covered under this provision.
Wait, what?
So, that's definitely different. Like, I could kind of understand, wanting to take care of elderly parents, right? Or parents that, can no longer work, they're retired or disabled or whatever reason. But for whatever reason that may be, extending that to brothers and sisters is definitely different. That's definitely different. I've never heard of that before.
Really?
Yeah, actually it is. Like, in number 5 in the enumeration of those who are obliged to support covers legitimate brothers and sisters, whether of full blood or half blood.
Oh, okay.
So this is with respect
It's interesting they specified that. Brothers and sisters of full blood or half blood.
usually with education.
With education.
Education.
So, wait. So my brothers can ask support from me for their education?
Correct, yes.
And I'm obliged, why?
If you have the capacity to provide to support their obligation, then yes, you can be compelled by the court to provide that thing to them. Because it is considered, education here is considered indispensable.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there's actually a law that you have to give support to your family. And not only your parents, also your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Well, see, while it's good to have education, I think education is definitely important, provided that it's education, not indoctrination, like we see happening a lot here in the West. But it's interesting that they specify that it can be full-blooded siblings or half siblings. But education is important. Now, some of you might think, so here's a question a lot of people debate about. Is doing things like this, does that provide incentive for people to work hard, or does it provide incentive for people to just say, I'm just going to lay back and take it easy and let, this person or that person provide for me or, pay my way to do things?
Okay. So only the things that they need, right?
Yeah, those are those things that are indispensable in their lives.
So what about if the Filipina is married to a foreigner? Obviously, her capacity to support increases. So what happens now? Is the foreigner also liable
good
to
point.
support the family? Or, combined with their, net worth?
Well, for a simple answer, it's going to be yes.
See, because that's interesting. She said yes, because I know here in the States, let's say if you have a guy let's say there's a guy that's paying child support to his ex. If she gets remarried, at least I know in our state, and I think in many states, if she gets remarried, you're not allowed, the guy paying child support is not allowed to include her new husband's income. So that's interesting there, what they said.
But as to the amount of support, it all depends on the financial capacity of the Filipina.
Oh.
So the financial capacity is determined on the property relations or property regime they have as a couple, as a married couple. So that's where the prenup agreement comes into place. If there's no prenup,
The way she's laughing, she's funny. So yeah, so it sounds like they're just going to base it off of the property, possibly base it off of the property value there, and then whatever income capacity would be solely off of the Filipina, if I understand correctly what they're saying there.
prenup agreement, so we all know, or we've been discussing this in the past, that the properties becomes absolute community, meaning it all becomes conjugal assets. Whatever you've you've had prior to marriage or during your marriage, then the Filipina owns 50% of which. And that becomes the net worth of the Filipina, which can be the basis for the court to determine the capacity of the Filipina to provide support to her parents.
Ah, see, that's okay. So that's interesting. Something to consider if you plan on going over there to look for a woman to make a family with. Definitely something to consider.
So it's different when we have a prenup, right? And with the prenup, most prenups I've come across, I've drafted for clients, is that all properties prior to marriage remains in a separate property of the foreigner. So in that case, the Filipino actually don't have any significant increase in its assets or its financial capacity. Maybe when the foreigners give some amount of allowance or something to the Filipina, that's the only amount, the increase of her assets or her financial capacity, that's the only amount going to be considered by the court in determining the amount of support to be provided to the parents.
And again, they can only request something that they need. They cannot
course.
ask like, "Oh, honey, since you married a foreigner, can you please send us to an Alaskan cruise?"
No.
So that kind of makes sense. So if the husband's giving her money, the wife money, then the wife's family could say, okay, well, this is how much money you are getting as the wife. All right, that makes sense. But that also kind of incentivizes the husband not to give the wife money.
Go to Havana.
What our provision specifically mentions indispensable.
Okay, indispensable.
So going to an Alaskan cruise is not indispensable. It's dispensable.
Okay, gotcha.
So although Alaskan cruises are very nice, not paying for it.
At least something to to sustain their living situation. With a Filipina married to a foreigner, guys, you have to brace yourselves. You have to consider that marrying a Filipina. Now that we know that it's actually a law that you have to support. The Filipina has to support.
Yeah, and for most Filipinas or for most Filipinos, I don't think they're quite aware of this provision.
I know,
it's
I
just
wasn't
culturally enshrined with us that we have this moral obligation to give back to our parents. It's a gratitude for them to give back to the things that they are enjoying, sharing it to their family. Because I always believe that if you do good things, you get good karma as well.
That's a good point. Do good things. Comes back to you. So okay. So she's saying that most Filipino men may not be aware of that.
5,000 years of Chinese music and dance in one night.
Right. I should be getting a lot of that later, but
Hey, you're enjoying it. Don't deny that thing that you're enjoying
oh
the
my
good karma.
gosh, Mom, please don't watch this video.
That's why you're speaking in English. Your mother can't understand. I hope so.
I
Said, Mom, please don't watch the video.
hope so. And brothers, don't you dare do the translation. Before marrying a Filipino, obviously you have to have the talk. The financial obligation of the Filipina back to her family, and also how it's going to be once they're together. So we've discussed prenups before.
Yeah.
And the Philippines, we don't have divorce. How does a prenup work here in the Philippines?
Even if we don't have divorce, but we still have the same effect as divorce, which is declaration of nullity and annulment of marriage.
Right.
And prenup is very significant with respect to termination of marriage because it's what governs how assets are to be distributed and liquidated or shared by the spouses. So if there is no prenup at all, then basically you share 50-50. Whatever the guy has, whatever the woman has, they share 50-50.
Right.
But with the prenup, in most cases, assets generated prior to the marriage, because it continues to be the separate property of one of the spouses, and and eventually their marriage didn't work and has to be terminated by way of divorce or by way of annulment of marriage, then the properties will have to be distributed according to what it is in the prenup. So
Right. So they don't have divorce. Uh, they have annulment of marriage and termination of marriage. Okay. So that must work. Obviously, their termination of marriage um, works a little bit differently. Seems to anyway. Must. Otherwise, they would just call it divorce, right?
The separate property will continue to be the property of the owning spouse.
Okay.
So the other spouse cannot invoke any right or have any interest on those properties.
Basically, the prenup can safeguard the assets prior to marriage for both parties. It doesn't
I think that's pretty much how it works in the States. I think that's one of the primary reasons for prenups, right?
mean to say that you're not gonna get anything after, because it depends on how the prenup was drawn, right?
Correct. Yes.
It-
How
the clause-
distribution of properties are agreed by the parties.
that should be part of the protocol, like before getting married, right? I know it's not a law here to have a prenup.
It's still not a norm among Filipinos.
I know.
It's still frowned upon by most families, especially Filipino families. But I also understand why foreigners would really ask for a prenup because, again, when they come to the Philippines and they meet Filipinas, and sometimes Filipinos are so nice in the first place, and then
Yeah, and
they're so romantic in their honeymoon stage of the
Yeah.
relationship, and
They're
then
all
eventually
over
they
you.
change. Especially if you see some Filipinas who, you're just looking for foreigners to hook up to support them, and
Right.
you cannot disregard this percentage of Filipinos who are doing that to survive, right? So for the foreigners, since there's no assurance for them if they've really had a good Filipina that will stay with them no matter what.
Exactly.
So they provide certain protection for themselves because they cannot just.
And that's a good idea. So, I mean, a lot of men from any country, whether like she said, a foreigner, it could be America, Australia, somewhere in Europe, any foreigner coming to the Philippines that meets somebody and wants to get married. Obviously, you're not going to want to, if you have significant assets previous to getting married, I can see how it's perfectly understandable that you would want to protect those.
Because they're already in the later stage of their lives wherein they cannot gather again this much asset to sustain them.
Yeah.
Right? So
they're already
yeah,
in that stage of life that they want to just relax, have a good life. This is like their last chance
To enjoy life.
To enjoy life, and you cannot blame the guys for protecting their assets. So for
Yeah, you can't blame the guys for wanting to protect their assets. And I would say, even for women, if a woman had significant assets before she gets married and she wanted to protect those and safekeep those, I totally understand.
any Filipinos who are watching this video, I know we were brought up in thinking that once you sign a prenup, you get nothing because your spouse is someone who's rich and they just want to protect their assets. They just want to protect their money. But they can customize the prenup, right, in every situation.
Yeah,
they cannot just. It doesn't mean to say that the Filipina cannot get anything.
I have some clients who.
So we're just going to leave it there for right now. The video goes on. Hers goes on for like another. Hers is almost 24 minutes long. So, and in her video, we're right at 11 minutes and 58 seconds. So we'll leave it there. But I did watch this video once previously before this, and they also go on to talk about child support and how over in the Philippines, there is no law. I think she says her lawyer friend there states that they do have a bill that is being proposed to provide enforcements or methods of enforcement for paying child support. But apparently over there, as of right now, they have no laws enforcing child support like they do in the States. For example, like, if a guy doesn't pay child support, then, I think you get your driver's license suspended. And then I think then after that, it's like your income, I think it's like income deductions and your taxes taken if you get any tax returns or anything like that. If you were to get anything back, it would get taken. And then eventually, obviously, the last step would be, putting you in jail. I don't think they do that so much anymore. At least I haven't heard of it. I used to hear of it a lot, like, 10, 15 years ago. But I don't hear much of about men being put in jail anymore for child support, but they don't have that enforcement over there in the Philippines at all. So, but they have a bill waiting to be passed. So we'll see what happens. But I think, obviously, I think everybody should support their children, as long as they're able to see their children. So we have some people that keep children from the other parent, and it's not fair to expect that parent to pay for children that they're being kept from, that they're not allowed to see because the other parent's being vindictive or whatever, right? But with that said, I'm going to leave a link in the description down below, as always, so you guys can go check it out. Check out the Filipina Pea, her channel. She's got an awesome channel. She does a great job on every one of her videos. She does a good mix of stuff, some funny stuff, some informative stuff, and she's got a great personality. And not to mention she's cute, so which always helps. But check out her channel, and don't forget to subscribe to her channel as well. Link's going to be in the description, as I said, and we'll see you guys sometime soon, very soon. Have a good day, everybody.